Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
All right.
What'd she say?
She basically said that they were going to give unqualified
God, how boring.
unqualified
Can they get
people
somebody there
jobs.
not so
Behind
tedious?
the Table podcast needs to apply for White House credentials.
They'd love having Joy in that room.
I got a question.
So wait a second. So in other words, instead of Bob Woodward, they want Kim Kardashian? What? I don't get it.
The mistake really is there's too much BS floating out there, and now it's out of our hands. There's no way to control it, so now they're saying they're going to control it. I want to see what they're going to do.
The ongoing feud between Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and Karoline Leavitt is showing no signs of slowing down. What began as a handful of tense exchanges has now escalated into a full-blown public battle, with both sides trading blows week after week. Neither camp appears willing to back off. So what sparked the latest round of conflict? And how did Leavitt manage to come out ahead once again? The evidence speaks for itself. Brace yourself, because this latest clash is intense.
So White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announced that the Associated Press has been banned from the Oval Office for not honoring the recent renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Take a look.
My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex.
The hostility The View seems to have toward Karoline Leavitt is impossible to ignore. You can practically sense the resentment coming through the screen. The explanation behind the controversy was straightforward enough. The Trump administration decided to expand White House access to include new media voices and independent podcasters who met specific qualifications. Simple concept, right? Yet somehow, in Joy Behar's version of reality, that turned into comparing the move to Kim Kardashian casually walking into the press room. No logic, no meaningful connection, just another exaggerated comparison meant to mock the situation. If anything, it sounded more insulting toward Kim Kardashian than anyone else. But does The View care? Not in the slightest. As long as they can take another swing at Karoline Leavitt, they seem perfectly content. Behar even mocked Leavitt's first press briefing as boring. Apparently, nothing short of a musical performance alongside policy updates would satisfy them. And even then, they would probably still complain. But Karoline had a sharp response ready. Listen to this.
Let me be unequivocally clear about that. And watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
Calm, confident, and wearing a knowing smile, Karoline Leavitt delivered a response so sharp it left The View visibly rattled. With precision and unwavering confidence, she called out Whoopi Goldberg in the panel for behaving more like conspiracy theorists than serious political commentators, accusing them of spinning speculation into supposed facts. Her remarks struck hard, exposing what many saw as hypocrisy and a desperate effort to undermine her credibility. The most remarkable part was how effortlessly she handled it. One composed response was all it took. For weeks afterward, The View noticeably toned things down. The usual dramatic outbursts, sarcastic comments, and repeated attacks on Karoline suddenly disappeared. It was a silence nobody expected, and to many observers, it looked like proof that Leavitt wasn't merely enduring criticism, she was forcing her critics to rethink the fight entirely. Online reactions only intensified the situation. Social media users mocked The View relentlessly with comments like, "Cancel The View, they're just a bitter group of people," and the irony of them talking about qualifications is unbelievable. Others questioned how anyone could still take the program seriously. Those reactions...
The mistake really is there's too much BS floating out there, and now it's out of our hands. There's no way to control it, so now they're saying they're going to control it. I want to see what they're going to do. I want to see who they're going to invite into this. Because, quite honestly, I like when we're held to standards. I don't always like the way they do it, but we have to have ourselves together. We can't just say stuff in spite of what they tell you. We can't just spout stuff. So I want that for everybody. And if they're going to guarantee that they're at the briefing, then I'll be happy.
The real problem is that there's far too much nonsense floating around. And at this point, nobody seems able to control it anymore. Now they're claiming they're going to manage it. And honestly, I want to see how that works. I want to know who they're planning to bring into these spaces. Because truthfully, I believe standards matter. I may not always agree with how those standards are enforced, but they should exist. We can't just throw random claims around, no matter what people tell you. If they're truly going to ensure accountability at these briefings, then I'm all for it. You could almost feel Whoopi Goldberg's frustration building as she spoke. Her hands moved wildly, her words overlapped, and she repeatedly doubled down in an effort to drive her point home. But the bigger question remained. What exactly had Karoline Leavitt done to trigger such an emotional response? In reality, her biggest offense seemed to be simply serving in the Trump administration. That alone appeared enough to spark the ridicule, sarcasm, and dramatic reactions. Watching Whoopi become so worked up over expanded media access was almost surreal. Many viewed the decision to include independent podcasters and alternative media voices as a modern and strategic move. But for critics like Whoopi, any shift away from traditional media outlets appeared unacceptable. She also seemed convinced that Leavitt had no idea what she was doing inside the White House. Watch this.
Because you don't understand what you're saying. You're saying about yourself that, you know, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could stand in that podium, so that Catherine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity to bust down that door.
Whoopi Goldberg launched into another heated criticism, this time questioning Karoline Leavitt's intelligence and qualifications. Her argument essentially boiled down to the claim that Leavitt earned her position simply because she is a woman. Ironically, that line of thinking mirrors the exact identity-focused hiring approach critics often accuse the Biden administration of using. Many pointed to former press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre as an example, arguing that her background and identity became more important than experience or performance. Critics frequently described her briefings as disorganized and unprepared, claiming she struggled to handle difficult questions effectively. Because of that, some believed Whoopi was projecting the same assumptions onto the Trump administration, treating the press secretary role like an exclusive club, where Leavitt had somehow just gotten lucky. The criticism didn't stop there. Whoopi also mocked Leavitt's latest press conference with open sarcasm.
So White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announced that the Associated Press has been banned from the Oval Office for not honoring the recent renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Take a look.
At this point, many people were left wondering what exactly Whoopi Goldberg found so amusing. She laughed as though something absurd had happened, even though the situation itself was fairly straightforward. Donald Trump renamed the body of water the Gulf of America. The Associated Press chose not to adopt the new term and continued using Gulf of Mexico in its reporting. In response, Trump restricted AP access to the Oval Office, though the outlet still retained access to regular press briefings and the broader press pool. Supporters viewed it as a direct reaction to what they considered open defiance. So where was the joke? To many viewers, there wasn't one. Instead, it looked like another attempt by Whoopi Goldberg to mock Karoline Leavitt, even if the humor felt forced and disconnected from reality. Critics argued that this type of performance only reinforced the perception that The View had drifted far from meaningful political discussion.
The problem that I have with it, though, is, she's saying that these people that are going to apply will meet their criteria. We understand that their criteria is woefully deficient and unserious. I think that their real problem in this election, one of the real problems among the many, is the misinformation and disinformation that was disseminated on social media by these influencers and by these podcasters. Why are they qualified to sit in the White House briefing room and tell America what is going on with the country? Traditionally, to become a White House correspondent or to be in that briefing room, you had to have a journalism degree. Yeah. You had to have qualifications. So I guess the rise of mediocrity is here to stay.
At this stage, the criticism directed toward Karoline Leavitt seemed to go beyond political disagreement and into something far more personal. Sunny Hostin dismissed Leavitt's standards for granting new media access to the White House, describing them as inadequate, while also questioning her intelligence and accusing independent journalists of spreading misinformation. The irony of that accusation stood out to many observers. Critics pointed to major media failures in recent years, especially the Hunter Biden laptop story, which several mainstream outlets initially dismissed as foreign disinformation before later acknowledging its authenticity. Meanwhile, independent reporters who covered the story early on were heavily criticized at the time, only to eventually be proven correct. Yet despite that history, independent media continued to be portrayed as unreliable, while traditional networks escaped similar scrutiny. To many viewers, it appeared that The View was willing to ignore inconvenient facts if it meant undermining Karoline Leavitt.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing.
And that is how Joy Behar's now widely discussed attack on Karoline Leavitt appeared to take shape, driven less by policy disagreements and more by frustration towards someone she underestimated. This conflict was never truly about qualifications or serious political debate. Instead, many saw it as irritation over the fact that a confident, articulate, and fearless young press secretary was outperforming expectations and challenging the media establishment head-on. Perhaps Behar expected someone easier to dismiss, a cautious, bureaucratic figure who would quietly follow the script and avoid confronting criticism. Instead, she got Karoline Leavitt, someone willing to directly push back and dismantle weak accusations with concise, confident responses. More than anything else, that ability to stand firm seems to be what frustrates Behar and her co-hosts the most.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
Karoline Leavitt's remarks appeared to hit Whoopi Goldberg harder than anyone expected. For years, Whoopi had been one of the dominant voices on The View, helping shape discussions and steer the conversation with confidence. But Leavitt's response struck at the heart of that authority. When she referenced what she described as Trump derangement syndrome, the moment instantly escalated. Delivered calmly and without hesitation, the comment landed with far more impact than a loud insult ever could. Whoopi's expression shifted immediately. The confidence faded, the laughter disappeared, and visible frustration took over. It was the kind of reaction that suggested she felt genuinely challenged. Even if she never admitted it publicly, many viewers believed she realized in that moment that Leavitt had successfully turned the tables on her. And the public reaction afterward only made things worse.
Spewing lies, uttering insane diatribes, and generally behaving in an ugly, hate-filled manner, we marvel and mock the sheer shameless stupidity of the modern left daily. On this program, we've almost become desensitised to the insanity, but even I was taken aback, sickened by this demented diatribe.
Powerful words from Rita Panahi of Sky News Australia, just when she thought.
Sky News Australia commentator Rita Panahi had strong words about the situation. Just when it seemed The View and its hosts had reached peak absurdity, Panahi argued that they somehow managed to push things even further. She criticized what she described as an endless cycle of outrage-driven reactions, where every episode appeared more dramatic and emotionally charged than the last. According to Panahi, the show seemed trapped in a constant effort to outdo itself with increasingly exaggerated responses, all while struggling to remain relevant as more viewers tuned out. What shocked her most wasn't simply the behavior itself, but how consistently the panel continued lowering expectations. Every time it appeared they had exhausted every questionable take possible, they found a way to escalate things again. In her view, The View had evolved from a daytime talk show into what felt like a non-stop public meltdown.
That hot mess that they air in the mornings, called The View, had to issue not one, not two, not three, but 4 corrections, legal corrections. 4 legal notes. We only have 3 of them on camera, but look at this.
I have another legal note.
Oh, my God.
Both Trump and Pam Bondi have denied allegations of a quid pro quo. I have a legal note.
You want to take this one, Joy, or are you
Matt
good?
Gaetz has long denied all allegations and has not been charged with any crime.
That's true.
Also, another legal note, Pete Hegseth's lawyer said he paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a baseless lawsuit. He has denied any wrongdoing.
Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side, and then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. I mean, this is a pattern with them.
Some of The View was still relentless. She described the program as chaotic and openly questioned how it continued to maintain both airtime and a dedicated audience, when, in her opinion, misinformation had become a defining feature of the show. Kelly highlighted what she saw as blatant hypocrisy, predictable outrage, and overly theatrical reactions that followed the same formula day after day. She compared the panel discussions to scripted reality television, except without any real entertainment value. According to Kelly, The View had transformed into an echo chamber, where personal bias often outweighed objective discussion. She argued that nearly every conversation eventually turned into an opportunity to attack conservatives, rather than engage in meaningful debate. Kelly also suggested that it had become increasingly common for commentators like Karoline Leavitt, Rita Panahai, and herself to publicly challenge claims made on the show almost immediately after they aired.
And he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties shifted to the right. That's a mandate.
Stephen A. Smith, not exactly a conservative commentator, has begun to see The View for what it truly is.
Even Stephen A. Smith, who is not known as a conservative voice, has begun openly criticizing The View, and that is what makes the situation especially notable. It is one thing when right-leaning commentators attack the program for political bias, but criticism coming from someone outside that circle carries a very different weight. Smith has repeatedly pointed out how The View seems determined to dismiss or mock nearly every action taken by Donald Trump since the November election victory, as though acknowledging anything positive would somehow violate their established narrative. What makes his comments stand out is the fact that Smith has built his reputation on speaking candidly, regardless of political consequences. He is not viewed as a conservative spokesperson, which means his criticism cannot easily be brushed aside as partisan talking points. When someone from within a broader mainstream media environment begins questioning The View's behavior so openly, it signals that the criticism has become increasingly difficult to ignore.
What are you doing to win? I love Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland. I love Josh Graham of Pennsylvania, okay? I just interviewed Cuomo. I like him a lot. I want somebody to step up and recognize that man in the Oval Office, whether you like it or not, is potent. He's coming and he wins. You got to find a way to beat him. This way is not the way that the Democrats have been doing it.
Let's talk about how people are feeling about his performance.
If Democrats genuinely hope to regain momentum in future elections, many believe they will eventually need to separate themselves from the kind of outdated political messaging represented by programs like The View. Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and the rest of the panel may energize a loyal audience, But critics argue they are doing little to persuade undecided voters or connect with people outside their shrinking circle. The nonstop outrage, sarcastic tone, and exaggerated commentary may appeal to viewers who already agree with them, but it often alienates everyone else. Instead of presenting thoughtful arguments or productive conversations, the show frequently turns political issues into emotional spectacles, lacking meaningful substance. As that pattern continues, more viewers appear to disengage entirely. Some even walk away from the broader political movement associated with those messages. Critics argue that if Democrats want long-term success, they will need fresh perspectives, honest debate, and leaders capable of connecting with ordinary Americans. In their view, relying on programs like The View only accelerates the disconnect.
Woke has nothing to do with a meritocracy. Woke is people doing extra stuff and putting people in places that are not qualified because of the color of their skin or whatever is between their legs. Whoopi, you don't know what you're talking about. And they say it with a straight face. Matter of fact, you're the reason why, for the longest, women couldn't be in these positions. Imagine you being the press secretary. You know how silly you are? Then y'all got a show full of women that's silly. Y'all women make people reconsider, should women even be doing this? Karoline Leavitt give us life. Y'all fools make us want to turn a cornerback.
Many supporters of Karoline Leavitt argue that her approach represents genuine empowerment, while accusing Whoopi Goldberg and her co-hosts of pushing the conversation backward. They see a major contradiction in the way The View presents itself. The panel often speaks about supporting women and promoting equality, yet critics point out that they relentlessly attack women who hold different political beliefs. To many observers, that inconsistency is difficult to ignore. They claim to encourage strong women, but then target and mock someone like Leavitt simply because she refuses to align with their ideology. Critics argue that the issue is not about empowering women broadly, but rather supporting only those who share the correct political opinions. The moment someone steps outside that framework, they become a target for ridicule and criticism.
You're asking me for what the president's justification is for these tariffs. It's not up to you. You're not the president, Gabe. And frankly, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to the families in this country who have lost loved ones at the hands of this deadly poison. If you talk to them, and this president has, they are grateful that they finally have a president who is standing up to both Canada and Mexico, and most importantly, to China as well. The president added an additional 10% tariff on China because this deadly poison is being produced in that country. It's being distributed through our neighbors, and there needs to be consequences.
Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt appears fully focused on her responsibilities, largely ignoring the outrage and criticism coming from Whoopi Goldberg and The View. While the show continues delivering heated commentary and public attacks, Leavitt remains occupied with her role, handling briefings, addressing questions, and maintaining a visible presence in the administration. Supporters argue that she refuses to waste time engaging in what they view as petty media theatrics because she is too focused on the demands of her position. The contrast between the two sides has become increasingly noticeable to many viewers. On one side, daytime television debates fueled by emotion and controversy. On the other, a press secretary continuing to perform under pressure. Critics of The View believe that difference explains why the attacks have become so relentless. In their eyes, outrage and conflict are necessary to keep attention focused on the show, while Leavitt's refusal to participate in that cycle only makes her critics even more frustrated.